Hi, I'm Sandy Kay. I hope you'll join me each week for a breath of fresh air. It's a light, bright and breezy music show that features interviews with your favourite stars of the 60s, 70s and 80s. I love tracking down and chatting to the people who made the music we all grew up with, and I can think of nothing better than putting a smile on your face as together we relive some of the best days of our collective youth. Think Chicago, Peter Frampton, Alice Cooper, Gordon Lightfoot, Graham Nash, Dave Mason, Dr. Hook and many, many more. Just hit follow to find your favourite artist. A breath of fresh air. It's all about their life.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Perfectly Good Podcast, the only podcast on the internet where we are counting every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. And I am a full-grown man, and I'm talking to a full-grown sister of all things John Hyatt. Sylvan, welcome.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you giving me my props because I was for a while the young kid at the John Hyatt concerts. In fact, I was just too young to see Little Village when they toured, but I've gotten over that because, you know, there is lots of love to pass around.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Little Village because we are doing a Little Village song tonight. We are doing Big Love from the self-titled Little Village CD. How about give us a little bit of the facts?
Okay, just the facts. Big Love was track number 4 off of the Little Village album, which was released February 18th, 1992. For those of you unfamiliar, Little Village was the supergroup of nobodies by their own description. John Hyatt, Nick Lowe, Ry Cooder, and Jim Keltner, who all appeared on the album Bring the Family, but came together as an entity in the late 1990s. They also made a big deal about how they're so old at the time. Now we're looking back at this 30 years ago, and it doesn't seem like any of them were old at all. In fact, I think they were all younger than me at this point. And Big Love, I don't believe got a whole lot of radio play, but it did get recorded when they went out touring for that album because they pretty much would sing the entire album with a couple of Bring the Family tunes brushed in. I did not realize until I was doing the research that the album Little Village was actually nominated for Best Rock Performance Grammy and lost to U2's Octong Baby. So another classic of its time, and it's interesting to think of those two going head to head. I did a little bit of digging and found a cover by an artist, Carrie Rodriguez, who has 2 different versions on YouTube. One is a really slick looking video with lots of interesting graphics. Another is one recorded with her and her husband, I believe, at home with a little kid and a very cute stuffed animal. So it fit the Big Love lyrics, I thought, perfectly, and is a lovely version. Definitely worth any of you checking out and giving a little love yourself.
Yeah, I did not check it on YouTube. I ended up adding it. It was available on Spotify, so I listened to it. Now I need to go see the videos. So we've talked about that, you know, Little Village just didn't work for some reason, though I would argue if you get nominated for a Grammy, you're doing okay. Right? So,
Right.
but I think the expectations were so high. To put the sports analogy, right? You get a super team together in the NBA, and you're expecting, okay, they're going to win, tons of titles, and then it just didn't quite work together. What's your thought?
And
Yeah.
there was something so magical about Bring the Family.
Yes.
that Bring a Family was lightning in a bottle. It was recorded
Yeah.
in 4 days, and it blew the lid off all the expectations that were already really high for John at the time. And now they're saying, oh, okay, guys, not only are you going to have some more time and resources, but you can all do this together in a collaboration. And there was the expectation that it would be even better because they had more time, and they, could be greater than the sum of their parts. And instead, I think what happened was it came out a little bit designed by committee. Um,
Yes.
John sings lyrics most of the time. He sings the lead on this song, Big Love. But it feels a little bit like they're all kind of being a bit polite. I would even say in the performance as well as the writing. Now, that's not to say that this isn't very strong songwriting, and we can get into that too. But I think John often talked about when he was collaborating with the other members of Little Village that it could start with just a phrase or something like that. And I can imagine him just throwing out, okay, big love. Well, what if we, played with that idea of size? And then we get into all these images of like, what are the greatest vastness that we can imagine? And we've got oceans that can't be crossed, 50-foot woman, drinking the Milky Way. And yeah, I'm a full grown man and I'm looking for a big love. It's a paradox in there too. So,
So one
was there
of
anything that struck you?
well, you telling this story made me think of just recently on the Penn Jillette podcast. He talked about that you don't want a partner who's polite to you. He
Mm-hmm.
said that when he and Teller work together, Teller says, if he brings up an idea, Teller says that's a horrible idea. That's a stupid idea. And then you have to
It's quite ironic coming from the person whose
doesn't
partner
talk right.
famously doesn't say a word.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing, if Teller brings up an idea, Penn will go, that's a horrible thought. And if you can't defend it, then you move on. And he says,
Mm-hmm.
you that saves us 4 or 5 days, because if it's not a good idea and you just politely go, okay, well, let's see, maybe there's something there, we've wasted 3 or 4 days versus right away we could say. Same thing today. I was listening to a podcast um, that from one of the guys, Ken Levine, who wrote Cheers and was involved. It's Frasier, MASH, and he had a writing partner, and he said if either one of them suggested a joke, and if the other one said, I'm not sure that works, instead of trying to convince him, we're like, okay, let's go to one we both have. So you wonder if they're doing this Little Village, was there not that, and not that you should be
Cutthroat
antagonistic,
or
yeah, but
yeah.
is there that more, because we only had 4 days to do Bring the Family and it was John's vision, so like, okay, let's do that. Just made me think of that. I think this is a good song. I don't think it's a great song, but as I listened to it on repeat today, I enjoyed John's version and I enjoyed Carrie's version. I may have liked hers just a little bit more, because she made it more of like a little pop song kind of to me, a little more. But I mean, I like them both. Um, let's get into it. You want to go through the lyrics?
Sure. So it is another one of those quite repetitive songs, excuse me.
Yes.
I need love as big as an ocean. I need a love that can't be crossed. A love in perpetual motion, and I need a love that won't get lost.
Yeah.
I gotta say that it starts off really strong and then seems like, oh, well, they were just kind of searching for a rhyme or an assonance there.
Yeah.
That yeah. And then do you know where this love can be found? Open up your eyes, take a look around. Do you know where this love can be found? Because I'm a full grown man and I'm looking for a big love. Um, who do you think they're asking?
You know, so is this the universe?
Mm-hmm.
Is he making his pitch to um the the girl at the end of the bar, that
Right.
making the pitch to? I don't know. Um I I this is, I think, average lyrics. I don't think there's anything in there that speaks to me as much. I do
No
laugh at
goose
the
pimples.
Yeah, I'm a full grown man. I do think of that because, a lot of times in sports they'll go, and he's a grown ass man, right? And so I thought of that. But the second verse, I need a love gonna move this mountain. I need a love that I can't hide away. I need a love gonna lift me up to the drinking fountain, just like my daddy did in my younger days. That four lines I like. I like the imagery of, love can move mountains. The idea, if you even have the faith of a mustard speed, you can move. I love the Buddy Holly reference. Need a love that won't fade away. Need a love that won't hide away. I like that. And then I love the imagery of your dad lifting you, or your mom lifting you up, because they don't always have the kid fountain, so you got to lift them
Right.
up while they're holding it. I just think that's a great image.
Unexpected. I agree that that is one of the stronger verses in this song because it evokes something that takes you by surprise. It doesn't feel like every love song that you've ever heard before. And um, I'm kind of a sucker for a love song that brings out the idea of you have to be humble to fall in love and you have to be willing to grow to be in love properly. So that idea of a young child and being lifted up by this experience or by this other person to, give you something as vital as a drink of cool water to quench your thirst, it works really well.
Yeah. So I don't the 50-foot woman to wrap the arms around, don't really get that lyric. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I don't feel um it it's
It
a
certainly
metaphor.
seems metaphoric.
Yes, and does it seem like it's a metaphor that works as well as moving the mountain, not hiding away? Um, I even is this love going to get me off the ground? Is this love going to get me up off the ground? And then I need a 50-foot woman to wrap these arms around. You mentioned earlier, were they just trying to rhyme, right?
Mm.
That versus, you know, is this, I mean, I like the repetitiveness, but I don't think it doesn't hit that third line. It seems like there could have been something else to go there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, no one could come up with something better, so they stuck it in and it
Hmm.
stayed instead of
Yeah.
coming back to it.
Hmm.
But I got to say that the bridge moves me every time I hear it. I
Hmm.
never did just a little drinking. I could drink the Milky Way. You think small and your heart starts shrinking, but I'm here to stay. Um, that it isn't fully formed and sensical in the way that some other lyrics are, but it's gosh darn powerful. And we're familiar with John's story, and he's not the only member of this band who struggled with alcoholism. So I appreciate that kind of reminder of pain in the midst of a love song, although it is a little bit kind of abrupt and doesn't fit the rest of the lyrics. But it speaks to perhaps the dangerous thing that a lot of people in recovery fall into, that like, oh, if I could just find a good person to love or love me, I wouldn't have this problem of addiction, of, being seeking out some kind of comfort from a chemical substance. But yeah,
It,
just that phrase of, I never did a little drinking, I could drink the Milky Way. That's a pretty powerful metaphor. Yeah.
yeah, I remember there was a great scene on West Wing where Leo, who had addiction issues, the character, talked about, I never understood enough. How can you say this is enough? How can you have that enough feeling, this feeling? And he talks about that's why he can't start with one drink, because it's never enough for him.
Right.
I do think this, as much as I love the others about the imagery of the kid being lifted up, it is the think small and your heart starts shrinking. Girl, I'm here to stay. Um, it, this is easy for me to say because I am very much Monday morning quarterbacking, but there is a thread in here of what could be, I think, a wonderful song, but it's just not quite there. Am I being overly harsh?
Not to me.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the time that we get the listeners with the pitchforks coming
Right.
for us, wanting to
Yeah.
take every episode of this
Yeah.
little podcast down. And
Yeah.
as a reminder, we're just two fans that really wanted
Yeah.
to dive in and talk about these songs precisely because we love John Hiatt's music so much that
Yes.
we wanted to look at every song in close detail.
Yeah.
And I have said many times that, if we were holding up just a song against the entire musical catalog, of which we know there are some real duds and some real stupid stuff out there,
Yeah.
then yeah, these are gonna be great songs. But if we're judging them against each other, there are so many fantastic songs that some of them just are going to be 1 star. They're going to be 1 star on the rating of John songs to
Right.
the 5-star John songs.
So, I mean, this is a listenable song. This is not
absolutely
like a couple weeks ago we did the double, and we both said we just didn't get these songs. This is, and I think one of the reasons I'm holding this to a curve is because I see the potential. I see that if this had been reworked, right? Like if we had done, let's go through another editing. Oh, I think I see what you're doing here. Let's try to do this. Let's push this theme a little bit more. Let's expand that your Milky Way and drinking. Maybe let's do a couple verses about your faults and your challenges of getting why you
faults in
need
our
love.
stars.
Yes, and then make it work. I think would have made it work a little better. Yeah.
So let me ask you, Jesse, did you feel that Carrie Rodriguez brought the song further, closer to that?
I did a little bit, and I think it could be the arrangement. I think I think maybe in this case the female protagonist maybe worked a little bit better.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we're not used to the male voice saying, I need love and I need something larger than myself.
Yeah.
we live in a society where the guy is supposed to be the big presence, the supporter, the
Mhm.
provider,
Yeah.
despite the fact that hopefully we're getting past that and
Mhm.
evolving, both the
Yeah.
male and the female and the non-binary. So, maybe there is something about when someone can start from the assumption of vulnerability and ask for something huge,
Yeah.
that feels like it works a little bit more, as
Mhm.
opposed to
Yeah.
when a man asks for something big, there's a kind of not so great connotation with it.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, and I guess I'm I'm not trying to have our audience think, wow, they're kind of crawfishing, they say, I I have the flaws in the song, but overall, I mean, like I would probably, I don't know if I'd give it a 3, but I'd be tempted to 2.5, 2, 3. I mean, this is
Well, I have to point out that we have got Rycruiter on slide guitar on this.
right.
And that's one thing that Carrie Rodriguez did not have. She
Right.
had fiddle and acoustic guitar. And that slide is a voice on of itself, that
Absolutely.
brings an emotional power. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah, that's really well done. We've talked about this in the past as non-musicians. We can't often talk about that, but last week when we talked about the mandolin on Before I Go was just so good. I do agree the slide guitar on this it sets a really wonderful tone for this song. How about you?
yeah,
I
I
said two and
think
a
the
half,
tone is
3.
kind of,
Yeah.
oh, you're pushing
No,
me into
no,
the
no, 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 no. Go
rating.
make your point. No, continue.
I was just going to say that musically, that a slide guitar has something about the search that works for it. That it's like you just kind of imagine someone looking out over the horizon and stretching and trying to find that big love that I think really works. But again, I'm not a musician. I probably just sounded like a complete idiot to
No,
anyone who's ever
I think
picked up a guitar.
no, I think you did good.
Um, I am gonna go ahead and give it a solid 2. No half.
Okay.
Because of like what we said, there are just so many strong songs out there. And my personal kind of yardstick is I'm introducing someone to John Hyatt. Where would this fall on how quickly I would put this song on? Would this be the first song I would play? Absolutely not. If it came up, would I instantly say, oh, but there's so many better songs that John has written? No, I wouldn't do that either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I
solid 2.
yeah, and I'm gonna do 2.5 just a little bit, and maybe I'm letting Carrie affect me. But I think, right, if you're getting into the John Hyatt, let's say you're exploring that, you've discovered him, you're going, um, this would be, well, Little Village was a really interesting experiment. But if I'm ranking on, okay, you need to get this next, you need to get this next, I would put that a little bit further down my recommendations. Like you want to try
Yes,
these things a little bit first. So
agreed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. This was a quick one, but that's okay. This is always fun to visit with you. If someone wants to reach us, how can they?
They can find us on our Google website. They can also find us on Facebook at Perfectly Good Podcast. Gmail is Perfectly Good PD. I am Sylvan Green Eyes on Twitter and also Sylvan Groff on Facebook. And I am happy to chat with any John Hyatt fan just about any time. So please do reach out.
Yes,
How about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. I am also Jesse Jackson on Facebook. We appreciate all the nice people on the John Hyatt website and the Facebook page that have said many nice things about the podcast. We really appreciate it. Thank you. This is a lot of fun for us, and we're glad everyone's enjoying our conversations. If you can, go to iTunes or wherever you get the podcast and rate and review us, and tell a friend about it. Tell someone that says, hey, if you like John, I think you'll like what Jesse and Sylvan are doing. So,
And if they don't like what we're doing, then they can come and argue with us.
yes,
We're
right.
happy
They
to
can tell
have
us,
more
yes,
voices.
right. So, um, they do not know this, but we are taking a couple weeks off because this will be seamless for our feed. But we're recording this on February 6th. I have 4 Bruce Springsteen shows in the next 2 weeks. So it will be, we may end up missing a week, but we will see what goes on. But we will be back.
And if I do all the talking in the next episodes, then you know that Jesse has blown out his voice by
Yes.
singing at the top of
Yes,
his
it
lungs
is.
4 times.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sylvan, I am so glad we're on this journey together. This is a blast. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Sylvan, and have a little faith.
Have a little faith.
Baby, we can come on.